Today, I'm speaking with Briana Brownell. Not only is Briana an entrepreneur and a teacher, she also has a background in statistics, quantitative analytics, and something called econometrics, which we'll maybe learn about today. She's the founder and chief data scientist of Pure Strategy Inc., which has built a personal AI analyst for businesses. She's been featured in Time Magazine, The National Post, Global National News, BBC News, Forbes. Briana is also a champion for ethical AI and governance. As a founding board member of AI Governance and Safety Canada, she's helping shape the future of responsible AI around the world. And beyond the data realm, she likes to explore AI's creative side, generating poetry and art with deep learning. So welcome, Briana.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is fun. This is going to be a really interesting conversation we're going to have here. So, all right, what's your favorite new thing that's happening with AI right now?
I am absolutely in love with the new image generator tools. I
Mm,
use them constantly for so many different things. I've been doing things like my own custom clothing designs. I've been doing them to sort of ideate stories that I've been thinking about. I use them constantly. I just love them.
mm. What's your kind of favorite way that you're using AI in your kind of personal life or your, individual life? And then what's your favorite way you're using it in business?
So this is going to take a total, left turn. My favorite way to use AI tools in my personal life is I use them for cooking, and I use them for doing wine pairings. So I did my first level sommelier training, and I'm a big wine fan, and I love to cook. So what I do is when I'm trying to plan my meals or I'm trying to figure out a recipe, me and ChatGPT have a nice conversation, chef to chef, and we try and figure out how I can improve recipes that I find, how I can sort of figure out how to pair things with it, and then sometimes make alterations depending on the ingredients that I have on hand. I use it absolutely every week in order to plan my meals and do sort of culinary and sort of sommelier thing. I just love it.
What, how much better are your meals and your wine pairings now that you have your little secret chef ChatGPT on the side?
Absolutely much, much better. I've
Hmm.
been able to experiment with so many different new things, and then bring in sort of really cool pairings and really cool ingredients, like things that I don't really know how to work with yet. I can
Mm.
ask ChatGPT, how can I work with this? What could I incorporate this in? And then sort of be able to step towards making something really interesting and really different.
What's your favorite new dish that you've made with ChatGPT, with Chef
Oh
GPT?
goodness. So me and ChatGPT actually have made up dishes together. And I find that really interesting.
Hmm.
So they're not really crazy, crazy, but it's really more about the technique. So we came up with this idea for sort of a creamy chicken with like balsamic flavors in it, with portobello mushrooms, and it was a
Hmm.
huge hit.
Oh, amazing. That's great. What about on the business side? What are you doing with it on the business side that maybe like you're using it in some unique way where you feel like you found I don't know, a little niche or advantage?
hmm so from the business side, there's a lot of really awesome opportunities, especially in the way that it can sort of guide you through your own thinking process. So when I do any kind of ideation, whether it's, I'm thinking about an article that I want to write, I'm thinking about a business plan that I might want to execute, I'm thinking of a strategy, anything like that, what I usually do is I ask ChatGPT to sort of act as a coach in that specific area. And then I get it to ask me questions so that I
Mm.
can sort of think through some of those things on my own. So it's sort of like a coach that allows you to kind of bounce ideas off of. So it doesn't necessarily come up with the ideas itself and tell you what to do. It's not like that at all. It's basically helping you to sort of think through things instead of doing it all on your own.
Mm. Well, my wife and I, we have a school where we teach coaches. And so, this is making coaches a little nervous, and maybe we can dive in a little bit more into this today. One question I want to ask you, because I've been using generative AI for a while now and teaching and trying to understand it myself, and I find that most people are not getting as much as they could from it, largely because they don't really know how to think about it. So I'm kind of curious, when you think about generative AI and you relate to it, how do you hold it in your mind? Like, what is generative AI to you?
Yeah, so I really think about it as a tool to augment what I'm already going to do.
Mm,
And so the way that you interact with it is sort of like if you had an assistant. And so you need to be really clear with your AI assistant on what you want it to do, any of the assumptions that you've made, any of the constraints that you might have in solving the problem. And then you need to be patient with it too, because sometimes you don't either tell it quite the right thing, your prompt is not quite right, and then you have to ask it again, or it doesn't come up with something that's quite right. And so I think of it as sort of a tool to augment the way that I'm doing my own thinking and my own processing, but the interaction is sort of like a back and forth with sort of a like an assistant.
mhm. Are there any things that you found it to be not very useful at, or do you find it to be useful whenever you go to it?
So it's not useful when you aren't clear enough in what you want to accomplish. And
Mm,
I think that that's one of the things that people really don't understand about some of these AI tools, because they think that it's going to give you like the seed of a great story to tell, or it's going to, completely, make artists obsolete, which I think that's impossible, because what it really needs is it needs you and your own human experience to have the conviction about what you want to say, right?
mm,
So it needs to take that sort of human experience in order to do anything. So if you just ask it, write me like a story about, a frog that goes to work, right? So this is something that you could do if you just want to see what kind of stories it'll tell. And it'll generate something kind of interesting, kind of funny. But it's not going to sort of tell a story that has that multiple layers of meaning, and that's something that someone wants to communicate. And so for me, trying to get it to think its own thoughts or sort of have that conviction is really, really difficult.
It needs a vision,
Yeah,
and it can help you to kind of clarify or search the vision space in a sense, right?
yeah.
But you need to go ahead.
Ultimately, though, you need to be the one that says, "This idea is good, this one isn't good, this one is interesting, but let's refine it and combine it with this." So it's really sort of saying, "Here are a bunch of possible ideas." It doesn't do a very good job of picking which one is the best one. You need to go in and actually sort of make that specific outline if you're using it for ideation.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And then you need to choose. The thing about it that most people don't realize is that it's generative, meaning that it can create new combinations of things. Like you were talking about the new chicken with balsamic and whatever cream dish. It can ideate, but then you have to kind of navigate through that field of generations in order to find what is valuable. Let's just say.
Hmm.
Yeah, I find it useful. Steve Jobs is famous for having good taste. He's and he. I think he said that. I think he said innovation is actually saying no to 1,000 things. It's not just coming up with good ideas, right? It's like picking them and so forth. Yeah. What are you? So you're well versed in prompting, right? And using prompting techniques. So what is prompting? How does it work? What is the kind of foundation of prompting from your perspective?
So prompting is really how you interact with these AI tools. So typically, the prompts nowadays are sort of text-based instructions that
Hmm.
you ask the AI tool to sort of do something for you. So if you're working with ChatGPT, you might ask it to give you some ideas for what you could make for dinner this week, and give some constraints, the kinds of things you like, the kinds of things you don't like, etc. With image generation tools, it's a little bit more concise because you're really just describing it. You're not asking it to sort of generate the image.
Mm.
So the tools are a little bit different in how you prompt them, and they are constantly changing. So I've been doing prompt engineering since GPT-2, if you can believe it.
Mm.
And the styles of prompts that you use have evolved considerably between all of the sort of newer models, and they're continuing to evolve. So there are a lot of researchers and practitioners like myself that are working on trying to figure out better and better techniques to solve some of the challenges that these large language models have in executing the prompt the way that you want to.
How has prompting changed kind of directionally from 2 to 3 to 4?
So you used to prompt all of the language models by giving it something to continue, right? So
Hmm.
it was less of a instruction, um, as it was sort of taking the sequence and getting it to sort of predict the next word. So, for example, you might say something like, "Here is my excellent and wonderful essay about prompt engineering," and then, start, "I love prompt engineering. Here are some great tips." And then it would continue and it would write those tips, etc. And what you couldn't do at that time was you couldn't ask it to write an essay, right? Or you couldn't ask it to do a specific task, right? If you did that, if you said, like, write a blog post about prompt engineering, it might continue with, write a blog post about automated cars, write a blog post about advertising. Like, it
Yes.
wouldn't understand it as an instruction. And so that's changed quite a bit. Now we're doing mostly the conversational style prompting.
Hey, quick question for you. What are you learning from this interview? And what do you want to learn next? Well, you probably want to stay ahead of the curve with AI just like we want to. And we want to be your top resource for interesting, cutting edge AI tools and knowledge here on Metamind. We're finding and interviewing interesting experts from different worlds, different industries. And then we're using this knowledge so we can keep up with AI and improve our success, improve our quality of life. So stay with us on this journey. So, first, click on the subscribe button, which you'll find under the video, so that YouTube puts this into your feed when we release new interviews with AI experts. And if you're enjoying this interview, please give me a like to let others know that this is the real deal. And also, if you know someone who's interested in what we're talking about here, then send this interview to them so that they can learn with you. And I also want to hear from you. So go down to the comments below and let me know, what's your favorite prompt or prompting technique? What are your favorite AI resources or tools? What are you learning from this conversation? Do you disagree with anything we're saying here? And also, what else would you like to learn? Who would you like me to interview here on Metamind? All right, well, go and subscribe, leave me a comment below, and back to our interview. Yes, yeah, really well said. So in the past, you would have to kind of get it started, hum a few bars, as it were, and then it could kind of pick up the tune. Now you can actually make requests and ask questions. And I mean, at this point, you can tell it to prompt you, which is even another level, because so many of us deal with the blank page problem, sitting down to the blank canvas, and we don't know where to go. So where's it going to go next? So looking at this directionally, what do you think, what's going to happen with prompting with GPT-5 and then 6?
So what I think we're really looking at is the, like, multi-agent AI is going to become more and more important. So what that means is, so we've already started sort of seeing it in some of the updates to Chat GPT, where instead of always getting the language model to sort of do the work, sometimes what it'll do now is it will search the internet to try and find it.
Yes.
Sometimes it will write code to try to find it. And so those are just two small examples, but what if eventually you could say, make me an appointment, book a dinner reservation and for, Friday night on in one of my favorite restaurants, and then it's able to sort of execute all of those tasks. So being able to kind of figure out how to get another sort of little AI to do that
Hmm.
thing. And it doesn't even have to be another AI, it can just be another sort of piece of software, and connect that up together. To me, that's a really, really special and interesting part of where I think we're going to go next.
Yes. Yeah. You can. What's fascinating to me is you can say to it, for example, you can say, "I'm having a dinner party and I want to make, chicken cream dish, and I like balsamic. Make me 10 recipes that could do this." And then it could make them, and then you could say, "Let me tell you a little bit about who's coming to dinner. Which one of these do you think will be best for them?" And then it can pick the best one out of all the generations that it makes. And that's something that's not really intuitive for a lot of folks, that you can ask it to kind of do a bunch of, like, generate a bunch of outputs, and then for it to go and choose or synthesize. But it's just as, quote unquote, hard for it to do that as it is to, rhyme two words together or do 1 + 1 is 2 or something. It's all equalized at this point, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because the language models now are terrible at 1 + 1 = 2.
I know. I know. I know. Yeah, my favorite one to do, and it still hasn't nailed this one, is to say, uh, you know, um, tell me the number of words that are going to be in a sentence before you write the sentence. And it just can't figure out how to do that. But it's getting better. I've been watching over the last, year and a half. It is getting better. So they're homing in on it over time. Um, okay, so you understand technically how these large language models work. Can you explain it simply? Because I think we can kind of never hear this too much, because I think it's kind of mind expanding. So can you put it in simple terms? And then how does that help you prompt better and get better results?
Yeah. So it really still does work in the same way as it used to, in that it's trying to predict the next word, right? So what it's trying to do is say, okay, what should come next?
Hmm.
Now we have this sort of second layer that people have put on top of it, where um, instead of having it sort of just complete the sentence, it allows you to complete something after an instruction. And so really all it's trying to do is try and figure out what the next word is, what the next word is after that, etc. And a really good exercise to do if you want to see this in real time is take a prompt, and then run it, and then take the result and sort of put it in a spreadsheet, like in one cell in a spreadsheet, and then ask it again, put it in the second cell, et cetera, et cetera. And what you'll be able to see is a lot of the ways that it begins are going to be the same. So you probably get, five or, seven of them that all start with the exact same word. And then many of them are going to like continue with the next same word, et cetera. Right. But then sometimes some of them will drift off really quickly. And so I think that that's the best way of seeing like how it kind of repeats itself and how it starts and sort of continues.
Yeah, to get a real sense of the way that generative AI is creative,
Yeah.
and kind of where in the process it's creative. Yeah, that's excellent to kind of compare the outputs and the generations to each other. Yeah, very simple. So if someone's just getting started with prompting, okay, let's say someone's just sitting down to ChatGPT today and they're like, okay, I hear this thing's great. What would you do first?
I think that it just starts with asking a question.
Hmm.
And the thing that I find the most magical or most kind of interesting about ChatGPT is ask it to try and figure out a word or something that you can't remember. So let's say, there was this song that you really liked. And what you can try to do is describe it and say, oh, I really like this song. It's a rock song, from the 80s. I think it was like like a hairband maybe, and it had like a really like recognizable chorus, and like describe it in as much detail as you possibly can. And what it'll do is it will make suggestions on what it thinks the song might be. So I did this a couple of weeks ago with, there was this movie when I was in high school that we watched that I couldn't remember anything about it except for one scene where there was this like guy on a boat, and I knew it had something to do with like fraud, right? And so I described all of that, and it kind of like prompted me back on like, what could it be? Do you remember this, et cetera, et cetera. And it finally, it figured it out. This
Wow.
like 60s French movie that I could never remember that title if it were just up to me. And you could never search that. You could never Google that, right? So for me, that's a really magical thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, you know, I just have to share one of my own little stories here about a way that I used it last year. This is probably 6 or 9 months ago now. My daughter, who's 10, she had read this book series that she absolutely loved. And I could tell that having a whole series was really good for her. And I had been searching on Amazon and looking at reviews and just, I was in like normal search, let's call it two-dimensional search mode for a long time. And then it kind of hit me, oh yes, right, we have generative AI. And so I went in and I told it about, a few different book series that she really liked and some of the topics and things. And it just started spitting out not just books, but books that are a long series of books that would also be educational and interesting and so forth. And then once I had those, I was able to then go back to kind of 2D search and read reviews. And within, it was minutes. It might have been like 10 or 15 minutes or something. I had a bunch of books in the shopping cart in Amazon that were the first book of series of books, and then I ordered those, and then the first one that I gave her, which was a high recommendation, she just tore into it. And it's like 50 books in the series, and she's just went through all of them. And then the next one, like literally, then we went on to the next series, and it was another incredible series. And she was like, "Dad, these are really amazing." And it was because of the, prompting and a little bit of training, basically, by telling it all of the different things. The power to infer is so
It's
incredible.
amazing. Yeah, amazing.
If someone's now sitting down to prompt and they're a little bit more on a business, like they're trying to use this for growth or getting clients or whatever they're doing inside their business, how would you recommend that they get started?
So I like using it for to sort of generate templates to fill in.
Hmm.
So for example, I've used it in negotiation where wanted to negotiate the sort of price for I wanted to negotiate the contract price with a client.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to basically I knew what arguments I wanted to say, but I wanted it to sort of put it into a very nice email. And so what I did was I asked for sort of a template on, what should I say, right? So that was good. And then I sort of filled all of that stuff in. And then I said, okay, so combine this together and sort of write me a first draft of this email to send back. And it was absolutely on the ball with, how do you sort of broach the subject, the sort of confirmation about being excited about the opportunity, like all of those kinds of things, right? And it did one of those things that's sort of stressful in business, right? Negotiation, that nobody really loves it, except maybe like Chris Voss, for example. But it did something that would have taken me a while to sort of get my thoughts straight and right. And it did it in just a few minutes. And yeah, it was very good.
Hmm. Yeah. What about more advanced prompting techniques? What are you doing that is more sophisticated that someone would, either not think of or that they could go and experiment with that might be really valuable?
So I've alluded to this before, but my favorite advanced prompting technique is called the flipped interaction pattern. And so basically what it does is it flips who's asking the questions. So instead of you asking ChatGPT or whatever language model you're using
Hmm.
to give you the answer, what you do is you say, okay, I need to figure this out. ask me questions until you have enough information to sort of give me a result. And
Yeah.
so what it will do then is ask you probably, between 5 and 10 questions. Often it's things that you haven't thought about before. So you
Hmm.
need to, think about it and kind of get your thoughts straight. And then after that, the result is much more tailored. So the flipped interaction pattern, I was just reading a research paper on this. It is the only prompting technique that consistently gets better results. So it gets better results every time you use it.
In what sense? Better results than you would have gotten had you not used it?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, got it. So people would say that technique got me better results than prompting in any other way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's very powerful. Another thing about the generative AI that most people don't really get or realize or notice is that it can infer a lot. So, for example, just like when I say, here are, 3 series of books that my daughter liked, what are some others she might like? It can then generalize and so forth. So you can tell it a little bit about yourself and what you're trying to do, and it'll infer a bunch of things, or you can tell it a little bit about your ideal clients and then just ask it, tell me some other things about them, and it will guess and be way up there. I mean, my experience is 80-90% correct. So yeah, that's excellent. um, Okay, so I have written down here, what is a gamified survey and how do you make one of those and why do you like them?
So this is some work that I did a number of years ago in letting people, instead of just answer a bunch of boring questions on a survey, what we wanted to do is say, okay, could we make it more fun? And
Mm,
if we did make it more fun, would the results actually be, consistent to what they would be if we hadn't made it more fun? And the interesting thing was we actually found it was pretty good. So people were more engaged. We did it with what's called a conjoint analysis. And so what that does is it basically gives you choices and it says, would you buy this product or this product? Would you buy this product or this other product? And in order to get the proper results from that, you often have to do like, 10, 15, 20. And it's really boring because you're just sitting there like, which is better? I don't know. Which is better? I don't know. Like, so it's not very
mhm,
interesting for the person who's doing it, but the
mhm,
results are just absolutely golden. And so we wanted to see, can we actually get people to be engaged longer and get more results? And so what we did was we made this little game where there was a bunch of little, people running around. And then so you clicked on them and then it would say like, which one should I choose? Right. So the same question as you would get if you were doing a survey. And then you got to click one. And then that little guy wandered off. And then more people would come in and you'd click on the little person. And people played this for like a long time, a surprisingly long time. And the
mhm.
results were just as good. So I thought it was like really fascinating because you can really increase engagement when you're sort of asking some survey questions.
Mm, that's excellent. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so the generative AI, it can help you generate ideas and generate direction, but then it can also help you take your project to completion and get things done. So, how do you use it to help you generate, in the kind of idea space?
So there's a few things that I really lean on. And the first one is actually trying to add elements of randomness into
Mhm,
that creative space. So um, you might be there's a deck of cards from I think the 70s developed by Brian Eno that is
mhm,
basically you draw a card and it has a sort of almost random phrase on it, right? Like something that you can kind of try to get aside, like get beyond your creative block. So it'll be something like divided in thirds,
Hmm.
or what would happen if it was backwards, or like just all of
Yes.
these really kind of off the wall kinds of things. And so that's one thing that I like using AI for, is sort of generating sort of random prompts kind of like that, right?
Mm.
Because then I can take it and I can think about what I'm trying to do and see, does that make sense? Does it spark something sort of interesting? I also do it with image generation tools because there's always an element of randomness in it, right? And so what I'll do is I'll try prompting sort of phrases or like business type concepts, and see if the images that are generated spark something sort of different. So that's one way. If I've already got a idea that I'm working on that I just want to sort of ideate with it, I basically just use it like I would use like a Word document, jotting down ideas, right? So I just say, you know, I've been thinking about this, and then I write everything that I can think of about it into ChatGPT, right? And then I just keep adding ideas, and whatever ChatGPT comes back with, I think about those responses. Sometimes it sparks another idea, sometimes not. And then I just continue working with it, and sort of prompting with all of the things, like all of my brainstorming ideas.
Okay, quick action step here. So the key is learning how to prompt better. You start out prompting by just asking questions and talking to AI like it's a helper. But you quickly realize that getting better at prompting is a huge accelerator and game changer for your own success in life. So these prompts will not only help you get a lot more done faster and accelerate your success, but they'll also help you really get prompting and get better at it. You can get all of these as a gift from me just by going to metamind.co/gift. That's metamind.co/gift. And I'll put that link below, and then just opt in to get it. I've also created a powerful video for you called AI in the Future of Business and Work and Success that demonstrates some of the key mindsets and prompting strategies to help you get up to speed and get a lot more out of generative AI. And it's also included as a free gift when you register. So just head over to metamind.co/gift to get your AI Accelerator Prompt Pack and the other free goodies. All right, back to our interview. Yeah, it's also really cool to prompt, have it generate possible solutions, and let's say it generates a list of 17 ideas, to just say, I really like number 2, number 7, and number 9, more like those. And then boom, it opens up and it can kind of go, potentially find that space. Or you can say, I like number 2, number 9, number 17, but I don't like number 3. And I also want you to do something that would be a little bit more chill, or do something that's more wild and colorful, and it can keep exploring. Yeah. That's great. Okay. Now what do you do? How do you use generative AI to help you bring it from, its concept or its project to getting things done?
Yeah, so for that, usually I get it to help me like ideate until I feel like I have the like a good enough idea of what the outline should look like. And
Mm.
I almost never try to get ChatGPT to do the outline because it suffers from exactly the thing that we talked about earlier, where it doesn't know what you want to say, right? And it'll
Hmm.
guess, and it usually guesses wrong. So I almost always, or I would say I always do my own outline, and then I flesh that out with as much as I possibly can, sort of around that outline. And then sometimes I'll either ask ChatGPT to refine it so that it's cleaner, but not always. Sometimes I just dive right in and sort of start working on whatever the task is. But the one thing that I often do is I will feed it back to ChatGPT before I get too far into it, and ask it if there's anything that it thinks that I've missed. And
Mm.
sometimes what it suggests is irrelevant or it doesn't fit. But sometimes it does, in fact, come up with things that you say, you know what? That's true. I should include that in whatever I'm working on as well. So I would recommend doing the back and forth like that. And then, so once you have whatever you're working at, on sort of like a 90% complete, I usually ask it for feedback. So ChatGPT like loves everything you do. So it's always going to give you good feedback, which is a great ego boost, even if you know it's a bit messy. But if you sort of continue and say, well, do you have any, critical feedback? So it'll always come up with critical feedback. It's not always, it'll come up with something regardless of how good the actual essay or whatever you're working on is. But it is pretty consistent in noticing, flaws or things that you should really work on. It's not going to just completely ignore things that are not done that well. And so I use that to say, okay, are these feedback items things that I need to address? And if so, then I try to address them at that point.
Mm-hmm. Got it. How are you using it for data analysis?
So it is excellent for doing the like quick data transformations,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times, something that you for sure could code in, maybe 15 minutes or half an hour. You can do it in like 1 minute with ChatGPT. So like, for example, I was working with this one data set. It was in a CSV file. And I needed to change it into a JSON format. Okay, so that's super easy. Yeah, I could go figure out what libraries to import, get it done. But instead, I just said, uploaded it to ChatGPT and said, hey, please convert this into JSON format. And, 2 minutes later, I had the data, right? It's really good at doing those things that are very sort of straightforward, but they take work to set up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and there are so many of those kinds of things that we do on a daily basis where, yeah, sure, I could do it, but, if ChatGPT does it, it'll save me a lot of time kind of getting into it and then kind of getting out to, whatever else I'm working on, right?
So you've built a personal AI analyst for business. What is this and how does this work?
So this is actually something that I worked on for a number of years, looking at what kinds of insights you could pull out of qualitative data. So think of things like if you have dozens of reviews, for example, if you have survey open ends, if you have notes from interviews with customers, if you have all of that is always extremely difficult to deal with. And so what we built was ways in which we could sort of take that information and turn it into something usable. So the original iteration of this tool was a language model. I mean, it was large by the standards at that time, but not large by today's standards. And it was able to sort of pull out some of that information. Fast forward to now, now we can harness the power of some of these really big language models and some of these sort of prompt engineering techniques in order to be able to do some of these things a lot easier and a lot faster.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So let's say I'm an individual entrepreneur. Let me say that again. Let's say I'm an individual entrepreneur. Okay, I have a one person business or maybe a very small company that's growing. How should I use generative AI? How should I be thinking about it right now?
I think that being able to have ChatGPT available to sort of help you accelerate what you're already doing is the best possible use of these AI tools right now. It is a good generalist. It can help you with, let's say, an HR item, an accounting item, business strategy item, whereas getting an expert to comment on all of those areas would be either really expensive or frankly impossible. But you can get, 80, 90% there with ChatGPT. Like, I mean, in a lot of cases, the experts will need to weigh in for, some of the complex things. But to be honest, most of the things that people do on a day-to-day basis, they aren't that complex, right?
Hmm.
They're sort of more straightforward things that are best practices.
And what are your favorite kind of growth areas to use generative AI for? Marketing, sales, product? What, when you're, again, when you're working with small businesses who really want to scale?
I worry sometimes about the overuse of
Yeah.
generative AI tools in some of these areas because
Yeah.
I do see entrepreneurs who basically are using it to try to flood content
Hmm.
without vetting it for quality, for, consistent brand voice, for, all of those kinds of things. And I worry that those organizations are really, it's sort of the lowest common denominator way to use the tools.
Hmm.
I think that, the way that businesses should think about it is, how do I use it to get to something better faster instead of replacing it with sort of low quality outputs? Because you can definitely tell when somebody's using chat gpt to like write an article, because it just has a certain sound to it, and usually it doesn't have what I was talking about before. It doesn't have that conviction of what the author is trying to say. It's
Hmm.
just sort of words without that sort of true meaning, right?
Yeah, that's well said. It lacks the conviction of what a person would be trying to say. It's that's you can kind of like sense that it's a missing there. How do you think generative AI will impact human potential?
I hope that it will have an amazing positive impact. I think that right now we're so early and there are fewer people using the tools than, if you're immersed in the AI world, you think everybody's using them and everything's going crazy. But the truth is, there are a lot of people who've never tried them. They're sort of, or maybe they tried them once or twice and they didn't really get something kind of useful out of it.
Hmm.
So I think that a lot of real benefit is going to come when more people thoughtfully try using these tools and try to see how it can really impact and augment the things that they're already doing. I mean, just think about when people switched from having everything pen and paper based
Hmm.
to having computers. So, it would have, it might seem insane to say, always have an AI assistant available to you at work, but it was the same thing that happened in the workplace when everybody transitioned from
Hmm.
that sort of predominantly analog way of working to now. Can you imagine working without a computer? Like I can't.
Yeah, right. What happens to creativity now that generative AI is here?
So for me, it has been the biggest augmentation of my creativity that I have ever had.
Hmm.
It is a way that I can get started on some of the projects that I've had, sort of shelved for 10 years because is just difficult and I was kind of stuck. It's breathed new life into so many of these things. There are things that I always thought that I wanted to do, but it was always, impossible or too difficult to sort of get anywhere with it. And now I'm, like I said before, I'm creating my own clothing, like I'm doing my own designs, right? And my own patterns, for example, something
Hmm.
I've always wanted to do my whole life, but now I actually can do it, right? And so I think that it's about thinking about how you can use these tools to enhance the creativity that is already innately inside of you.
Hmm. What is creativity?
Oh, goodness. I think if I were to think back to when I first started thinking about and reading about AI and how creativity could be maybe tackled by computers, it
Hmm.
was all about the interesting combinations of ideas that sprouted something really new.
Hmm.
Um, and I still think that there is a huge benefit in being able to um, have one interesting concept and say, well, what if we think about it in this completely sort of different way?
Mm,
So I'm not talking about just sort of like a mashup of two different things. What I mean is, you have something that's interesting already, and then you sort of you push the boundary of that into something that's really a different and a new space, so that when you look back at that original thing, you can see it in a completely different way.
mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's great. Thinking about something in a different way beyond the boundary of the original space. Yeah. Reminds me, let's see, Da Vinci had that great quote where he says, every once in a while, take a break from your work and go on vacation and go far away so that when you come back, right, you can see it in your proportions. That's a really sophisticated way of thinking about it. Thank you so much for coming and talking to me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you are very welcome. It was a really enjoyable conversation.
So thank you for watching another Metamind AI interview. Remember to keep practicing prompting, keep learning, get our prompt pack and quick start video, watch our other videos to learn from other AI experts, and stay tuned to us here on Metamind. Stay subscribed because this is going to get really interesting.